So, Chance and John, once Kundalini is awakened, is it still safe to drink, smoke cannabis, experiment with any other substances? I'm finding things getting worse.
A huge question. And here's an interesting thing. Look back at India and see what kind of things, like you'll find bang and cannabis use really dovetailed with yoga. It's fantastic for meditation and stuff. A lot of people literally can't meditate because they have this 20th century industrial disease where they can't calm down. And so if you have to do something, obviously, if you attain anything naturally, that's the ultimate trophy. But there's a reason why cannabis has been a companion plant to the human being for tens of thousands of years. Alcohol, on the other hand, is absolute death, absolute worst. It'll kill your ability to meditate. If you're ever feeling depressed and you're drunk, do not kill yourself. Your mechanism, your DMT mechanism gets all messed up when you're drunk. So should you find yourself in need of moving out of your body, you can't do it properly if you're drunk. And just in general, oddly enough, I just read something that Henry Ford said. He said, alcohol in the brain is like putting sand in a motor, putting sand in gears. And like, here's the thing.
Yes, you're asking us,
Judge
darling.
my authenticity about this. No, when you're practicing and you're actively doing Kundalini work, yeah, you absolutely shouldn't drink. You really shouldn't be eating meat. Absolutely don't eat Doritos or anything corporate. Don't eat anything with more than 3 words in the ingredients. There's a time when you're making a run at the Kundalini thing, and you can do everything you can, and there's no guarantee that it will happen, but there's absolutely a guarantee of ruining what might happen with alcohol and stuff. But mushrooms and pot.
Well, can I just interject? Because I just did an oh, actually, John, you go, darling, and then I'll top it off.
Yeah, no, I mean, like Timothy Leary dealt with the 8 neurological circuits, and alcohol was like the lowest, absolute lowest. I don't drink. I personally don't drink at all. I did years ago, but as I got older, it just waned, and since I've been doing energy work, yeah, I don't do it at all. I do eat meat, try to make it, primarily a vegetarian diet, but yeah, meat's definitely part of it. It's one of those things, purifying the body, the temple, make it more of a conductor, for these energies. But yeah.
Oh, and I could tell a story. I'm trying to tell this faster and faster because I have to bring it up every time. It's the most appropriate analogy. When you make a torch and you take a stick and you take a rag and tie it around the end of the torch, and then you put fuel on the wrapping, on the gauze to light your torch. If you use dirty fuel on your torch, the gauze at the end will burn up. It'll just completely disintegrate. If you use clean fuel, the torch will burn all night and it'll never affect the fabric in your torch. And it's an incredible metaphor or analogy, or it might be the same rules of physics. But if you have clean fuel, if you have clean blood, then these incredible energies can surge through you. But if you don't, if you've ever met anyone with Kundalini sickness, which I might be, I might be a giant cautionary tale for this. If you do these things without the right preparation, you will fry your fine synaptic filaments, and there's a legitimate risk of Kundalini sickness if you don't.
Now, can I add something?
Please.
I've just completed.
Are we like Brett and Heather? We're like the Brett and Heather of. We're like Brett and Heather Weinstein. She's like, you will not finish the sentence. I'm going to interject. Go ahead.
I'll try. I am a terrible interrupter. I just edited this interview that I want to tell you about. So I just did this amazing interview with a theosophist who is a person that is also ascribes to anthropophagy, right? I can't even say it. Anthropophagy. And we were looking at the spiritual implications of things that you put in your body.
Ooh.
And what's really, really interesting about that is that things that we might consider to be fairly benign, things that we consider to be life-saving, can indeed have deleterious effects on the complex of bodies that we actually are. So we are beyond just the physical body. We have, the way he explains it, there's 7 other bodies that include our angel, our elemental, and all of these things, and that certain medications and certain things can actually disrupt our bodies and pull them apart, and even disrupt the process of the afterlife. And the big sad thing is that we are living in a materialistic paradigm, and as such, we don't spend any time or money researching things beyond the material, and we could be doing incredible harms to ourselves, and we just don't even realize it. So that's my 5 cents worth. I don't know about pot and alcohol in these regards.
Opiates, though. Benice's guest talked about opiates. Tell them.
Yes, painkillers. Basically, painkillers separate the bodies and essentially can do great harm. I would suggest anybody look up Thomas Mayer, Mayer. And I will have an interview out with him shortly. And his book is incredibly detailed and it talks about lots of different things. So if you're interested in that subject, buy the book because things like chemotherapy, things like painkillers do have different effects on the body. So it's something
Thank you,
we need to be
Sackler
concerned.
family. Thanks, Sackler family.
Are we
Another word from our sponsor.
Are we YouTube live, by the way? Is that?
Yeah,
I know
don't say anything.
Okay.
We're live on YouTube.
Yeah, the reason why, because, well, some medications most recently, people have reported severe effects with the nervous system. I mean, and with the damages that happen to it. Yeah, energy work, it works in the nervous system, the limbic system. So anything that's going to mess with that is going to definitely give you problems. I heard reports of people saying that they could no longer feel it. The things that they'd been working on, the energy in the body just suddenly disappeared. And it's the reason why, well, I didn't take certain risks. I'm in the position I'm at right now. It's been a difficult transition this entire year. I went back to just doing physical labor. As I told you, I was delivering stuff. So, the whole summer was way. Oddly enough, overworking the body too has effects. And this past summer was that way. We had 90-degree temperatures. We were delivering in. I was doing mail carrying. And 13-mile routes a day, and that's up and down stairs. And a lot of my meditations kind of suffered. I couldn't do the full hour at times. My legs hurt so bad that just folding them, I couldn't, but I kept up with it, and it's one of these things like what JJ Semple talked about, just this kind of consistency of practice. A lot of these practices assume that you're not going to be optimal all the time, but consistency matters. So as long as you're making the effort and putting it in, that's the most important part. And I found the same thing, that throughout the summer, my meditations actually got deeper. Despite the physical issues and that, the time I did spend in it was more productive. And I've since stopped doing the delivering I was doing, and my body's returned back. My legs are much better now. I can sit for a full hour, but I did make strides during that time. So there's things you can overcome. I think even, I remember, reading about Taoist monks and that they ended up, Buddhist monks that ended up in war times where they could no longer sustain a perfect vegetarian diet, where they were eating whatever they could to survive, but yet they still maintained. It's one of these things that life is messy. It's not perfect, so trying to optimize, what you put in you, how you practice or whatever you do. Yeah, these are all things we shoot for. But progress can still be made. And this is assumption you're running against the clock. Your life is only so long, and over and over again in literature, it shows you that immortality of the soul, we talk about is not a given. It's one of these things that you work at it. You have so long, to be justified, to be immortalized, if we're going to talk that way, and that you may not make it in time. So it's hard. Life is, it throws a lot of obstacles in your way. That may be the point, see what you can overcome.
Do you know what the good news is though, darling?
What's that?
The good news is that intention is one of the most powerful assets that we have, right? So basically what you're saying is that you can mess up your diet, you can mess up your medicines, but if you have the correct intention, a heartfelt intention, that's kind of the moral of the story of this book. That, there are detoxes that you can do on a physical plane, right?
Oh, yeah.
But also the power of intention is something that is incredibly strong in this regard. And it can really go a long way to saving us. And I think that's really what you're saying, is that you can mess up your body, but as long as your heart and soul's in the right place.
I think your intention always brings you back. I mean, if you head down a path of addiction, an intentional, it's one of these things where you may completely wreck yourself. But if you end up in situations and keep going back and keep practicing no matter what, or, or working on things. I think that's what intent does mean a lot.